Okay, it is recording now. Okay, let me share the screen again. Okay, so because of these properties, what happen is that we have a very different type of characteristics in terms of currents. So currents are very strong in the western side, which are called western boundary currents. Eastern side currents are different than the western side current. Okay, so there are certain other characteristics. Uh, so the idea of this course is to understand the mechanisms, the mechanism that will control this kind of circulation. Okay, so that will be our major objective. So what we will start today is we will start with the equation of motion. Okay, we will just go very briefly with the equation of motion, and I'll try to explain certain terms. Most likely you know about them already, as Professor Ashok already told me. But just for a confidence from my side, and I'll just go over them a little bit briefly, okay? And we'll discuss about them. And then from there on, we'll try to go towards the core of the course, which is basically scaling, and then the geostrophic circulation, and then the circulation with the frictions, and so on. Okay. So when I talk about the motion, okay, we already know that the motion is defined by the Newton's laws, okay, and the most important law that we want to use here is the second law. What is the second law? Vaisali, can you tell what is the second law? What is
So,
the second law of motion?
so which says that force is equal to mass into acceleration.
Yeah, so that means the acceleration of a body is actually proportional to the net force that is acting on that body, and the acceleration direction will be in the same direction where your net force applies. Okay,
So
Is-
acceleration or momentum.
uh, we're talking about acceleration. Okay, and it is inversely proportional to the mass. Okay, so basically acceleration equals to applied force by the mass. So, so this is the equation that we can actually write. Okay, so this left hand side, what it is basically mass into the acceleration, and the right hand side is the all other forces. Okay, instead of mass, we have written rho. Why rho? Because it is basically unit mass. So per unit mass, and du dt is actually terms represent acceleration. So u is your velocity. If you take a differentiation with respect to time, it is basically your acceleration. So the left hand side is your mass into acceleration, and the right hand side should be your the total net force acting on that body. Okay, so what are the forces? One force is the pressure gradient. We know very well. Okay, so for example, you have a water level up somewhere, and you have a water level down. Then from up to the down within the slope, as per the slope, the water will flow. Right. So that actually driven by the pressure gradient. Another thing is that body force. Okay, what is body force? Body force means the force which is acting on the entire volume, entire mass. Okay, so in this case, it is gravity, and these body force are always conservative forces. And the third force, which are the any other force which are non-conservative of nature. Okay, so the one such force is the friction. As there is a motion, so there will be friction, and that friction is a non-conservative quantity, and that is another force that will act onto the system. But one thing to note here is that this system is in inertial frame of reference. So that means your coordinates are fixed in space. So once it is fixed, and then then you are actually looking at the trajectory of the particle, and then you are finding out, okay, what is the acceleration of the particle, and then what are the force that acting on the particle. So that's what this equation represents. But what happens is that for a liquid or for a fluid, it is very difficult to track a particle. Okay, for a ball, we can always throw a ball and we can always track that trajectory of the ball and we can solve these equations. But for a fluid, how will we do that? Because it is very difficult to pinpoint a single particle of a fluid and then track it, how it is moving, how it is accelerating. Okay, what are the force acting on that particle? It will become a very complex problem. Okay, it is not impossible, but it is not convenient as well. Okay, so we need to find out a different way of dealing this. Okay, so what is the different thing? So what we say that instead of tracking a particle, what we will do, we'll track a volume. Okay, volume of water. Say a box. So we have a virtual box. Okay, an imaginary box which is sitting into the fluid, and the fluid is passing through the box. So instead of tracking the particle, what I am tracking? I am tracking how the flow is happening inside the box, and we usually call it a control volume. Okay, so my volume is fixed. I want to look at, okay, how the parcel, as the parcel is moving through the volume, how it is changing. Okay, whether it is changing or not. One example is in the right hand side. So this is land, the shaded area, and you have a mountain. The winds are blowing parallel to the terrain, but you have a mountain here, so the wind, the air parcels have to move up and then come down as per the terrain. Okay, so at a given instant, at a given place, for example, what happens is that as the parcel moves to the top of the mountain, it condenses and then forms the cloud. So, and then there is a cloud band that forms and then it flows. Okay, so this wavy structure is happening because of a terrain. Now, if I look at this terrain, if I put some instrument to measure how weather system is changing, the top of the terrain, one at the top of the terrain and one at the say somewhere in the plain. What I will see is that there is no change in the system. At the top of the mountain, there is always a cloud, and it may be raining. And in the this one, just before the mountain, there is no cloud. Okay, so it is. I mean, assuming that the wind is moving very uniformly. Okay, it is not changing with the time. So even though there is no change in the system up top of the mountain, but the particle which was moving with the wind, where when it was in the plane, say for example you have a moisture, so if that moisture was not condensing and making a cloud, so the property is changing as the particle is moving on top of the mountain. So when it is going to the top of the mountain, it becomes condensed and then falling it as a rain. Okay, so the property of the particle is changing as it is moving. Okay, from the plane to the top of the mountain. But the instrument that is placed on top of the mountain or at the plane, not seeing any change. Okay, so this is the difference between tracking a particle and compared to when you are actually looking at a control volume. So the control volume is fixed in space, whereas the particle is moving. So this control volume approach is basically called Eulerian approach. So this is what it is telling. So C is a property of that particle. So the property at fixed point in space is 0, the rate of change of the properties. That means there is a cloud all the time, or there is no cloud at any time, any point of time. Okay, so it is not raining there. So the property is not changing. However, the property of the particle for a fixed particle, it is changing with respect to time. So when it is at the plane, it is different, but as it moves on top of the mountain, the property of that plane has changed. Okay, so this is the difference between the Eulerian approach as well as the Lagrangian approach. So when we deal with the fluid flow, most of the time, and at least in this course, we'll be dealing with the Eulerian flow of motion. Okay. Someone is waiting there. Okay, so the rate of change, so the any change in the characteristic delta C in that case in the Eulerian form can be represented as that the change of the property with respect to time, but we also have to consider the change of the property with respect to the space. So that means the acceleration having two terms. One is this, that delta C by delta T. After doing some maths, you are getting delta C by delta T. Then you have an additional term here, which is showing that how the property C is changing in the direction of X, how it is changing in the direction of Y, and how it is changing in the direction of Z, multiplied by the velocity vector. Okay, so this is called local rate of change of a particle, and this is called the spatial change, which also refers to advection. Okay, so this is my advection term. Advection happens due to the change in the property in space, and the local acceleration, which is due to the particle itself. Okay, so this is the relation between the Lagrangian form and the Eulerian form. So when we are dealing with this equation, so the left hand side we have to convert into Eulerian form. That means it will have two components. One is the local rate of change, the other one is the advection. Okay. Another component, this is the same equation again. So another component is my body force. Okay. So what is the body force here? As I said, it is basically the gravity. So the body force, when you're talking about a conservative body force, that means it should always can be represented as the gradient of potential function. Okay. So that means the gravity should be, we should be able to write it as a derivative or the gradient of a potential function phi. Okay, because that is a body force. Since you are from the physics and maths, I believe you know about this one body force and the potential function. Okay. So in this case, phi is what? In this case, phi is z into z. There is if you raise a particle from one place to the other, it actually gain potential energy. Okay, so that is the potential. Phi equals to g into z. So my gravity force G can be written as minus del phi. So instead of phi, I can write it as Gz. Okay, this is my phi potential function. Now, del is what? The gradient operator. The gradient operator is I del x, J del y, K del z, and then this is my potential function phi. Okay, if you just do this.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, this is Kameshwari
Yeah.
from Incom. Sir, can you please let me in the meeting? I'm waiting in the lobby.
Okay.
I'm speaking through Jyoti's account.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, just a minute. I cannot see anyone. Can you try again?
Yes, sir, I'm trying. I'm getting asking to join.
Okay, I cannot see. Okay, now it is coming. Yeah, it has come. Okay, Please
Yes,
try
sir.
to join before 2:30 so that this interaction doesn't happen.
Yes, sir. Sure. Sorry, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so my gravitational force is basically minus del phi. As I said, it has to be represented as the gradient of potential function, and then my phi is zz here. So if I put it zz here, then what you get is basically minus k g. Okay, so k is your coordinate vector. Okay, upwards, but minus k means it is downward. So my gravitational force is basically g in a negative direction. That means the gravitational force is acting towards the center of the earth. Okay, that is what the minus k represents. So the gravity is towards the center of the earth. So this is the equation. Then what you get for this is rho kg minus rho kg. That means g is acting towards the center of the earth. That means it will only be important for which component? For the k component. That means if this is my momentum equation, you have v equation, you have w equation. So the z will go into the w equation because that is your kth equation. Okay, that is your equation in the k direction. Okay, so another problem with this equation is that we looked at this term as okay, acceleration has to be divided it has to be represented in terms of Eulerian form. That is fine. But then another problem with this acceleration is that we are measuring this acceleration on top of the earth. So that means we are sitting in the earth, or our instrument is on the earth surface and measuring that acceleration. Okay, it is not the fixed frame of reference anymore. So that means because the earth is rotating itself. Okay, so that means we have to find out the acceleration. This acceleration is the inertial frame of reference. That means it is no longer hold for a rotating frame of reference. So we have to do some more calculations to find out how this acceleration will change when we will look at in terms of a rotating frame of reference. Okay. So, so for example, this is my acceleration vector u in inertial frame of reference. Okay. So this is same thing is represented here, but on a rotating frame of reference now. Okay, at a position vector r. So this is my r rotating at an angular velocity omega. Omega is my angular velocity of the earth. So the omega is directed to the north. Okay, if it is rotating like this. So omega is directed to the north. This is my r is my position vector. That means a location on the surface of the earth. So it has a latitude and longitude. That is my position vector. Okay. At that position, what I see is that I see a velocity u, which is we are talking about u in rotating frame of reference. But my u in is my inertial frame of reference. So this u rotational frame of reference plus omega cross r is basically my u inertial frame of reference. So u inertial is equals to u rotation plus omega cross r. Okay, that is the relation. Now, how this relation has come? Okay, let's look at I have chalked out that those things. So let me just present that. It was very difficult to type everything in the PowerPoint. So what I did is that I had to write it down in a pen and paper, and that is scanned. So this is the same thing I taught earlier also to your previous batches. So the same note I'll just try to explain here. I'll share this note again with you all. Okay, so you don't have to write it down unless you want to note something. Okay, so we have to find out that how the relation came. Rotation, I say velocity in inertial frame of reference is equals to velocity in rotational frame of reference plus omega, which is basically angular velocity of the of the frame of reference, cross multiplication R. Okay, so that is the relation. But the thing is that how the relation came in. So to do that, we will do little mathematics. It is not complicated. Don't think that okay, I'm talking about something big. So we have that omega here, which is the angular velocity by which the arc is rotating. This is this is a vector. Okay, I'm just trying to make a general formulation. This is any vector A. Okay, so that the vector and the omega, it is inclined with an angle gamma. Okay, so this is my arc and I have a vector somewhere here, position vector, right? So that means the position vector and the axis of my rotation has an angle, and this angle is basically my gamma here. Okay. Now what happened is that at a small time delta t, that means after a few seconds, my a vector will rotate a bit because it is moving. Okay, it is moving from a to a plus t plus delta t. So at a time t, it was a vector here, but at time t plus delta t, that vector changed from that particle changed from one place to the other place. Okay, and then that place is basically a t plus delta t. So what is the delta a here? That means how much distance it traveled. I have to find out that first. Okay, so at a time delta t, how much distance it could travel. Okay, so in order to do that, what we can say, okay, that okay, so let me take two pens. So I have my vector was here, and then it moved a little distance. Okay, if I look at from the center of the arc, I can see that it actually traveled with an angle. Okay, it was here and then it moved some angle. So that I am talking about as delta theta. So what is delta theta? Delta theta is nothing but the velocity, angular velocity of the arc, that is omega, time multiplied by how much time it travels, that is delta t. Okay, so my delta theta is basically omega time delta t. So what is delta theta? Delta theta is nothing here. So if I want to measure delta theta. So this is my A. I have to calculate in the same plane. Okay, so it was tilted, right, from A to delta A. It is tilted compared to the axis of the rotation. So if I have to measure the delta theta, what I have to do? I have to take that two vector in the same plane first. Okay, so this is my same plane. If you just take a cross section, okay, this is my arc. I am taking a cross section in the plane in which the particle is moving. Okay, so what is this line then? This line is nothing but, see, this is my angle gamma. Gamma is what? The angle between my position vector A to the axis of the rotation. Okay, how inclined it is in the surface. Now, if this is gamma, this angle is basically 90 degree because I am taking a cross section. Okay, so this is a 90 degree. So this is a rectangular triangle where this portion is 90 degree, this angle, and this is my vector A. So what is this line is? This line is nothing but A sine gamma. Okay, because gamma is this angle, opposite side of my line is sine theta, right? This sine. So it is A sine gamma. This is A sine gamma. Is it okay? Everybody, I want to know that you are following me. Otherwise, you will lost completely.
Yes, sir.
मेरा स्टैंड में लगा किया है वो पुराना वो साइंटिस्ट है
साइंटिस्ट और स्टैंड नहीं मेरे पास, मेरे पास नाम लिखा हुआ है।
हाँ तो नाम को तो चेंज करना है, वो करके कर देंगे ना।
नहीं तो ये वाला ले लो ना, डायरेक्ट करके वहाँ से इनको ऐसा
सर उनको सिस्टम कर दो,
इनको सिस्टम मार दो,
बस हो गया।
हाँ इनको से बोलो सिस्टम।
बस ये थोड़ा
हाँ,
इसमें से ऊपर कैसे करते हैं फिर मार देंगे।
आप वो भी कर सकते हैं।
हाँ, वही, हाँ।
Sorry. So this is right? This is magnitude of vector A times the sine gamma. Okay. My objective is to find out delta A. So this is my A sine gamma, and this line is my A t plus delta t. That is the final position. Okay. Now this angle is 90 degree. I have drawn it very badly, but it is 90 degree. Why? Because the velocity, so delta is basically what? Derivative of A, right? So the velocity always tangent to the trajectory, isn't it? So the delta A is always perpendicular to the trajectory of the A. Okay, so this angle is my 90 degree. Okay, it is basically 3D, so it doesn't look like a 90 degree, but it is 90 degree because it has to be tangent to the trajectory. So this is again a rectangular triangle where you have a 90 degree angle here. And this line I know it is A sine gamma. So that means I can find out delta A from here. Okay, so the delta A is A sine gamma tan delta theta. This is my delta theta. So this is in that same cross section. This is that A vector, but in the same cross section, it moved an angle delta theta in that same cross section, right? After a time delta t. This is the delta theta here. Okay, so with the time delta t, angular velocity omega, it is from A to A plus delta t. So that is my delta theta. So this is my delta theta. This is my A sine gamma. So delta A is what? Delta is A sine gamma tan delta theta. Okay. And what is eta vector is? Eta vector is in the same direction as delta A, perpendicular to my vector A and vector omega. Okay. It is tangential to the trajectory of the path. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
Is the delta theta fine with you all? What is delta theta? If anyone has any confusion, please let me know.
Clean up shop. बाद में एक और डॉक्यूमेंट लेके
Everybody is following?
Sir,
See, this is little complicated because I'm not writing it on a board. So everything is drawn here, so I can understand the things may look like complicated. So if you are not following it, let me know. So I'll try to explain it again. Okay, I'm just asking again. Could you follow what is delta theta is? Delta theta is, see, I don't have a ball here. So basically your earth is circular. From center, that point A may not be at the equator, right? It may be say at 45 degree. So I have an angle. So 45 degree is from equator to 45 degree, but from the axis of the rotation, it is also 45 degree in this case. So that is my gamma. So angle of my rotation and your position vector. It is somewhere at the surface. So that is my gamma. Now the particle is moving towards the east, say for example. Okay, make it very simple. So it is moving towards east. In the same latitude it is. Okay, so it is in the same cross section. If I take a cross section of that latitude, what I'll get? I'll get a circle. So it is moving in the same circle. Okay, from position A to A plus A t plus delta t. Okay, and this distance is my delta A. What is the angle it traveled? It traveled delta theta. Okay, so the angle, what angle I'm finding out? I'm finding out the angle from its original position A to A plus A t plus delta t, but in the same cross section. Okay, so that is my delta theta. So delta theta is what? How fast it is moving? It is moving in a rotational angular velocity omega. How long it traveled? travel delta t. So my delta theta is omega cross delta t. Okay. So now I have found that, okay, what is the length of this vector here when I am actually projecting A to that same cross section, okay, in a perpendicular cross section. So that is A sine gamma. Now I have to find out delta A. I know this angle delta theta. I know this length of this line, which is A sine gamma. So I can always find out this. Okay, this angle is 90 degree. Okay, so my delta EA is A sine gamma tan delta theta. Theta vector is representing at which direction it is moving. It is moving towards delta A. Okay, from A to A t plus delta t. Now tan delta theta can be represented as Taylor series. Okay, what is that tan delta theta? Is delta theta plus 1/3 delta theta cube plus so on. Okay, you know Taylor series? You are aware of Taylor series, right? So sine, cos, tan, cot, any function, trigonometric function can be represented in terms of Taylor series. So the tan theta is basically theta plus 1/3 theta cube plus 215 theta to the power 5 plus so on. Okay, so this is the Taylor expansion. So if I just write this expansion here, then what I will have? Eta vector, that is my unit vector, magnitude of A, sine gamma, and then delta theta plus delta theta q and all this so on. So if you just multiply inside, all rest of the terms will be much higher power of delta theta. Now delta theta is very small because I am taking a very small increment in time. Okay, so for a small increment of time, delta theta will also be very small. Okay, say for example less than 1, if I make it square of that, or if I make it multiple order of that, then what will happen? It will become much smaller and smaller and smaller. So I can neglect them. So I neglected this anything above delta theta square. Okay, in fact this is delta theta to the power 4. Okay, so it is much smaller. So like let's assume it is 0. Okay, so what will have? I have that delta A bar is equals to A bar sine gamma delta theta. That is my expression. Okay, now I have to find out what is eta bar. Eta bar is nothing but it's a tangent, right? Tangent at this direction. So that means it is perpendicular to A and it is also perpendicular to my rotation of the axis. Okay, so if it is perpendicular to omega and it is perpendicular to A, I can always write an unit vector which is omega cross A. Omega cross A is always, it means that that vector will be perpendicular to omega and perpendicular to A. I want to make it a unit vector, so I will divide it by the magnitude. So I get a unit vector which is perpendicular to omega, which is perpendicular to A. Right? So now I put that instead of eta bar, I put that omega cross A by omega cross A magnitude. Okay. Is it fine? Now I can also take a limit delta t approaches 0, so it become delta A by delta t, and that this become d theta by dt. D theta by dt is what? How fast theta is changing with respect to time. Okay, which is basically nothing but your angular velocity omega. Okay, so this is my angular velocity omega. A and omega can be subtracted from here because omega cross A magnitude is nothing but magnitude of omega, magnitude of A, sine gamma, angle between them, isn't it? So I can replace this term with this term. So now I have omega, now I have A, this will be replacing this, and then sine gamma will also cancel this. So I left with omega cross A. So dA by dt will become omega cross A. So any vector A which is in a rotating frame of reference, the derivative of that is equals to cross product between the angular velocity and the vector. Okay, so this is the relation. Okay, this is a very beautiful relation, and you have to remember this. Okay, so any vector which is on a rotating frame of reference, if I want to take a derivative of that, then dA dt is nothing but omega cross A. Okay, so this is a general term. Let's make it a little bit more into this. So now I have a vector. Right now, what happens is that my A vector is actually from center of the earth to the surface. That is my position vector. Okay. Now I want to see a vector which is on the surface of the earth in the coordinate system I1, I2, I3. I have a coordinate system I1, I2, and I3. Like I have latitude, longitude, and height. Okay. So from where you have latitude, longitude, and height? It is from the surface of the earth. Isn't it? So now I have a coordinate system which is not at the center of the earth but at the surface of the earth. Okay, so that is my say for general purpose. I will write it as I1, I2, and I3. And I have a vector which is B in this coordinate system. Now I have to find out what is the acceleration of B and what is the velocity of B. How to find out? So if I have to find out the velocity of B, what I have to do, I will take a time derivative with respect to B and I will get the velocity vector. So that is my dB dt in rotational frame of reference. The time derivative of each of the component dB1 dt, dB2 dt, dB3 dt, and I will get the velocity component, right? But I want to have a relation with the inertial frame of reference and the rotational frame of reference. So if I take the B derivative of B with respect to time, but in inertial frame of reference, then I have to take two things. One, the vector is accelerating. That is my dB1 dt I1, dB2 dt I2, dB3 dt I3. But my coordinate is also accelerating because my coordinate is on the surface of the earth and the earth is rotating. So I have my earth is also having a velocity. Okay, so that I also have to take care in. So that means my I1 is also changing with respect to time, I2 is also changing with respect to time, and I3 is also changing with respect to time because it is at the surface of the earth now, isn't it? So when I am taking a derivative with respect to inertial frame of reference, not only I have to take a derivative of the component, but I also have to take a derivative of the vector itself. Okay, and it is basically like a cross product derivative of a two quantity dB1 dt I1, and the next time B1 is fixed, derivative of dI1 dt, and that is my this term. Similarly, this and this. So I get another term here because of the rotation of axis itself. Now I know if my vector is changing with respect to time, it has a relation. Just now I derived di dt is equals to omega cross I. Okay, so what I'll do is that I will use this relation here, di1 dt, di2 dt, and di3 dt. I'll put this here, omega cross I1, omega cross I2, and omega cross I3. And the first term is nothing but the acceleration in the rotating frame of, velocity in the rotating frame of reference itself. So that is dB dt r. R means rotating frame of reference. I can take out omega from this as a common term, and then I have b1 I1, b2 I2, b3 I3, which is same as the vector. So now my velocity in the inertial frame of reference is velocity in rotating frame of reference plus omega cross that vector. This is what we found in our this one. Just a moment, I have to. So this is the thing that we derived, and this is that in the presentation I said omega u in equals to u r plus omega cross r. You saw that. So this is the relation between the velocities in rotating frame of reference with respect to velocities in the inertial frame of reference, and that is what we derived here. Okay, so any vector b in inertial frame of reference velocity with respect to time is basically the velocity in the rotating frame of reference plus omega cross that vector. But our interest is to find out acceleration, right? We have to find out acceleration because our left hand side of the momentum equation we have acceleration there, so we need to find out acceleration. So instead of b, now we have started writing r. R is my positional vector, so dr dt inertial frame of reference, dr dt in rotational frame of reference plus omega cross r. So this is my relation. So what I have to do is that I have to, so this is basically ui equals to ur plus omega plus r. So just to make it simple, I have to take derivative once again in order to find out acceleration, right? So this is ui by dt. Again, take a time derivative with respect to t. So this will become the acceleration in inertial frame of reference. Is it okay? If I take time derivative of the velocity field itself, then it will become acceleration. So this is my dui by dt in inertial frame of reference. But ui itself is a vector. My velocity is a vector, right? So then again I have to use the same formula. So dui by dt in rotational frame of reference plus omega cross ui. Okay. So this because that ui itself is a vector. But now I know what is the relation between ui and ur. Ui equals to ur plus omega cross r. Just replace it here. So the entire right hand side will become in terms of r, because I want to find out a relation in terms of I and r in acceleration. So I have to convert right hand side in terms of r only, not there should not be any I there. So I am replacing ui with ur plus omega cross r. Here also ui with ur plus omega cross r. Very simple. Just take a derivative again. Then this will become dur by dt, and this term will become d omega by dt cross r. Right? First you take derivative of this omega. What will be the answer? Derivative of omega with respect to time t is earth angular velocity is changing with respect to time. Is angular velocity of earth is changing with respect to time or not? It is not changing with respect to time, because the earth velocity is earth rotational velocity is same, fixed. Okay, so d omega by dt is equals to 0, so this term goes to 0, plus omega remains fixed, dr by dt in rotational frame of reference plus omega cross ur plus omega cross r. Omega you take it inside. So I get this. This is very interesting. So this is my dui by dt. That means the acceleration in inertial frame of reference is equals to acceleration in rotating frame of reference, plus I got two terms. One is 2 omega cross r, and other term is omega cross r. Okay. So these are the two terms, that extra term that you got because of the rotation of the earth itself. Okay. And interestingly, this term is basically called Coriolis force, and this is a centripetal force. Okay. Now the question is that how these two force goes into the momentum equation and how we treat it. Okay, so that because you might be knowing that okay, the Coriolis force is already there in a momentum equation, and in U equation you write Fv, and in U equation you write Fu, but how it comes because of this. Okay, that is 2 omega cross r u and omega cross r. So let's go back to the presentation and let's see. So this is what we derived. Du in by dt in inertial frame of reference is acceleration in rotating frame of reference plus a term called 2 omega cross r u, and another is u omega cross r. Okay. So now my momentum equation is become du dt. Let's go to this. Okay, I have a p term here, I have a gravity term here. Okay, and I have a force. So this is my delta p term, this is my gravity term. I have gk, right, minus gk. You remember that g is basically minus gk. So instead of k, it is written z bar. Okay, basically they are same. Because you are taking it to the left hand side, it becomes plus. And you take these two terms into the right hand side, so it becomes minus 2 omega cross u and minus omega cross r plus some frictional force. Okay, so I got two terms. One is Coriolis acceleration, other than is a centrifugal acceleration. Now the thing is that, okay, how they look like in the equation. Okay, so let's go back to this. So we'll try to find out how the Coriolis terms looks like. Okay, and why we actually write F and Fu in our U momentum equation and V momentum equation. Okay. So what we got? We got 2 omega cross u. This is my term, right? 2 omega cross u. So what is omega cross u? First we have to find it out. So this is my omega. Okay, so I have written, I have to, in order to make a cross product between two vector, I need to know its component. Okay, component of u I know, that is u, v and w. U component, v and w component in x, y and z direction. But what are the components of this omega in x, y and z? Until I know that, I cannot do a cross product. Okay, so this diagram is showing you, okay, what are the components. So my omega is towards the top. Okay, parallel to the rotation of the earth axis. This is my z, this is y axis, and my x axis is into the paper. Okay, into the screen. This is my z axis, this is my y axis, and x axis is into the screen, and this is my omega. Okay, so let's assume that the latitude here is theta. Okay, so latitude of this point is theta. Theta is what? The angle between equator to the position. That is my latitude. So that is my theta. So if this is my theta, then this angle will also become theta. How? Because that the angle between two lines is the same as angle between other two lines which are perpendicular to these lines. Okay. So this line is omega is perpendicular to this line, and this line is perpendicular to this line. So this angle is also theta, as same as this. This is fine. Is it okay? Any doubt here? Theta is my latitude. I want to calculate this angle. This angle is also theta. Why? Because this omega is perpendicular to this line, and this one is also perpendicular, which is parallel to y-axis, is also perpendicular to this line. Okay, so you have an angle, same angle theta here. Is it okay or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is theta, this is my omega. So if this is my omega and this is angle is theta, so what will be my y component of omega? Y component of omega is this line. So omega cos theta. Right? This will become omega cos theta. And what will be my z axis component? It is the opposite line of the theta. So it will become sin theta. Okay. So omega y, in y direction omega is cos theta and z direction is sin theta. Okay. And x direction is perpendicular to omega, so it is 0. So my 2 omega cross u is nothing but ijk. You know the cross product, 0 omega cos theta, omega sin theta, and you have u, v and w. So if you take a cross product, what will happen? So x component is minus fv. F is what? 2 omega sine theta. F is omega sine theta. Okay, fv plus gamma w. Gamma is omega cos theta. Okay, if you are not following it, let's say for example I component I have to find out. So I have to first multiply omega cos theta with w, omega cos theta with w minus omega sine theta with v. Right? This is my I component in cross product. Is it okay? Now omega cos theta I am writing it as gamma, and omega sine theta we usually write it as f. That is my Coriolis parameter. So I get minus fv here. What about y? For j, this is omega sine theta into u minus 0 multiplied by w. So it become fu. And similarly, 2 omega cross u z component means I have to multiply u into omega cos theta, 0 into v minus u into omega cos theta. So that is minus gamma u. So this is my z component. So that's how the Coriolis components comes in. Okay, so the x component become minus fv. We usually neglect this. I'll come to that. Why? Because we usually assume w is very small. Y component, in y equation we write fv, and in z equation we write gamma u, and we also neglect this term. So I will come to that once we'll do the scaling, that why we actually neglect this term, why we neglect this term. So is it looks familiar to you now? I know that you are familiar with the momentum equation. So this is a u component momentum equation where this is my left hand side acceleration del u del t into this advection term. This equals to minus alpha is basically 1 upon rho del p del x, and then what you have fv in u, and in v equation I have what? fu. That is what we found here. So this is minus 2 omega cross u in the equation. So this will become minus and this will become plus. And that's what you get it here in the u equation and in the v equation. Is it okay? It's already 3:30 today. Is it okay? Any doubt till now? In the next class, we'll look at the centrifugal force and how we treat the centrifugal force, whether we neglect the centrifugal force or not. Okay. So that portion will come. I wanted to finish it today, but because of the time limit, we cannot do that now. So in the next class, we'll do that. So if you have any question till now, tell me quickly. Have you done this in the class? That is my first question. Ashok is also taking the same course, but for the atmosphere. Have you done this Coriolis term and centrifugal term?
No, sir.
Okay. Are you familiar with this equation?
Sir, Ashok sir has introduced the equations. We didn't do the derivation.
Equation you are familiar, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you know that there is an acceleration term, then there is a Coriolis term in the right hand side, you have pressure gradient and the friction. You know this, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so somewhat you are familiar. So okay, this is how the equation looks like. So you have u equation, you have v equation, you have a w equation. What is the w equation? Can you tell me quickly? W equation is nothing but your hydrostatic equation. Okay, del P del Z equals to minus rho G. How it arrives, why W is not there, we'll know that in the next class. Okay. Similarly, you have an equation for temperature, you have equation for salinity, and these are the 7 equations. Okay, that constitute momentum equation, that constitute primitive equations basically. So all 7 equations you need in order to find out how the temperature will change, how the velocity will change, and all this. Okay, so we'll go to that. Okay, slowly. So till now we understood that, okay, there, this is my equation, and in this equation this is my Coriolis acceleration, and in U equation that's why we get Fv, and in U equation and V equation we get Fu, the opposite. Okay, and it happens because of this cross product. Okay, fine. Okay then. Thank you. So what I'll do is that I'll share this class note with you. Okay, and I'll also share the PPT with you today. Okay, so that you go over it. Next day we'll try to recap it bit again, so that we are in, all of us are following in the same line, and then we'll try to advance it. Okay, and I am following a book which is Dynamical Oceanography, which is Pond and Picard. You know that Pond and Picard, Dynamical Oceanography. I am following that book. Many a times I will crop some of the equations from there, some of the theories from there. Okay, but mostly you will get everything from that book, and I'll also share my notes with you so that you can do it yourself. Okay, and let me know next week that if you find any difficulty till now in this exercise. Okay, if there is a problem, we'll just repeat it. Fine. It is important that you understand this. Unless you understand this, we will not be able to go ahead. We'll go ahead, but it will be like you without any base. You will find this lose in the future. Okay, so don't do that. Try to make best of it. Okay, thank you.
Sir,
Thank you, sir.
thank you, sir. Recording.
Sorry,
Sir, can you share the recording, sir?
a recording. Yeah, it's saved in Google Drive. I found.
Yeah. So you can share to, sir, our common ID, sir.
Okay, you don't have access to that. Okay, I thought you have automatic access to that.
No,
Okay,
sir.
I'll share that.
You can,
Yeah, I'll share that. Okay.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.